Welcome to Speak with Eve. I'm your host, Eurydice. Today, my friend Porochista Khakpour, the writer of Tarantulas, is going to join me in talking about Luigi Mangione. Welcome to the show, Porochista.
I'm so happy to be back.
You and I were had a date to talk about the results of the election.
Oh my God, yeah.
What a devastating but unsurprising outcome. And then right after the election, this came up, and I think this topic is meant for us.
Well, it's funny though, because actually this news item does kind of involve a lot of the election topics. It touches on, I think, the chaos of like the response, which has been surprising only for like, I think, officials, or it's some of the press also seem weirdly surprised, but anyone who paid attention to the American public's dissatisfaction with like basically everything, this could really see it coming, and you could see it coming from the voters all the way through this. And I have a feeling this isn't going to be the last event that also shows what some might regard as a surprising outcome, but to a lot of us who are paying attention seems actually quite rational.
In a sense, the people who voted against Trump and the people who voted against Kamala, either third party or for Trump, out of just disgust of the lack of options, they are represented in this outburst, right?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Revolutions do begin with killings and murderers and wars, including world wars.
Yeah.
There is so much symbolism in this one outburst of violence.
Yeah.
So I'm going to just go through the timeline for everyone who may not be caught up. November 24th, Luigi Mangione reportedly goes from Atlanta to New York City. He has a fake ID as Mark Rosario. He goes to a hostel. He always wears a mask. He takes it off to smile beautifully and seductively at the young desk clerk. So that's the key piece of evidence. First time his face is exposed. December 4th, there is the killing outside the Hilton in Midtown Manhattan. Luigi Mangione was there. It was around 5:35 a.m. He went by e-bike. He left by e-bike. He got a coffee at the Starbucks and sat on a bench waiting for Brian Thompson, the United Healthcare CEO, to emerge. Then he went through Central Park on the e-bike, got rid of his backpack, which had Monopoly money in it. He took a taxi to the George Washington bus terminal, left the city. Then December 9th, which is 5 days later, at 9:15 a.m., a worker at Altoona McDonald's called the police and said that someone who looked like the suspect, whose picture was all over the news, was there, and he was arrested by police shortly thereafter with a 9mm pistol with a silencer, a home-printed weapon, and a handwritten notebook, which has been called the manifesto, expressing hostility against the healthcare industrial complex and executive CEOs. And there was a tip from a missing persons report that was filed on November 18 by his mom in San Francisco. So the photo from the missing persons report was already in the system, and that brought it all together. Since he was arraigned in Pennsylvania, he has been brought to New York City by helicopter in a military posse, in like a huge show of force. Totally overkill, like a phalanx, and which only elevated him to look more like a martyr, like Christ-like. He was unarmed. He was surrounded by all of these like big giant men in bulletproof vests and the mayor. And the police wanted it filmed. They called the Associated Press there. So, and he's now held in the same downtown Brooklyn jail where like P. Diddy is held, and has been charged not just with the state murder, but also federal murder and terrorism charges. Which is a charge that hasn't even been used in like mass shootings against church parishioners or synagogue goers. To my knowledge, this is like the first time where a single murder of one individual has been charged as terrorism. I guess against all CEOs.
Right.
Those are the facts, and you and I are very interested in the public response to it and how he was an instant folk hero.
And I got berated online about this. Actually, I got an apology from the same person who berated me today, in fact. But I had a former student of mine who was a very left-leaning, definitely progressive thinking individual who, I made a joke, like everybody was making jokes, of course, and I think a lot of us were fixated on like how funny it was that he looked like a movie star himself. So I made a joke like looking for a man with Luigi energy, some ridiculous joke like that. And my student was just like, no, 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 the murder is not funny. And so we had this whole long back and forth where he kept saying murder is not funny. And I said, well, yeah, you should be very upset by the United Healthcare CEO's, track record against, human life. And this just went back and forth for hours one night a couple weeks ago. And then today, my former student finally said like, oh, you know what? I'm so sorry. Like I kind of got caught up on the whole thing and I see where you were coming from. But for the most part, everybody, including like politicians like Elizabeth Warren, took the stance of like, well, you can only push people so far. So there was this general mainstream acknowledgement that our healthcare industry, as you said very properly, a healthcare industrial complex is an evil homicidal machine that for ages now has been brutal to the American public. I think that this murder had happened prior to COVID. We might have had a different response, but I think like even I have noticed as someone who's chronically ill and someone involved in disability rights activism work, I've noticed there's a huge shift in sort of mainstream American public discussions about healthcare because so many more people are sick or someone in their close proximity is sick. Everyone has experienced COVID at least